The pasta was still boiling when her phone lit up for the 5th time in 2 minutes. I'd been stirring the sauce, trying to ignore it, but the glow from the screen bounced off the kitchen tiles like a lighthouse beam. Each flash cut across the steam, slicing the kitchen into fragments. Me, her, the table we'd built together, and the little rectangle of secrets in her hand. She didn't see me watching. She never does anymore. Her thumb moved so fast, it was like she was typing Morse code. The smell of garlic and basil filled the room, but all I could taste was metal. The pasta timer beeped. She didn't flinch. She just kept typing, smiling down at the screen. I scooped the spaghetti onto our plates anyway, even though my hands were shaking. By the time I set hers down, she had propped the phone against her glass like a tiny TV and was still reading. And then I saw it. Not the message itself, the name at the top. A name I'd never seen before. Not a coworker. Not a friend. Not family. A name with a little heart next to it. I sat down across from her, the steam rising between us like a fog. She twirled her fork, smiled at the screen, took a bite. I didn't smile back. I didn't even blink. Instead, I said it. For quiet words, so soft they slid under the clink of cutlery and the hiss of the stove. Enjoy your last dinner. Her fork stopped midair. The color drained from her face. She swallowed wrong and started coughing, the pasta catching in her throat. The glass tipped over, spilling wine across the tablecloth like a red warning flare. She looked at me, eyes wide, still coughing, and for the first time in months there was no phone between us. Only panic, guilt, and the truth she'd been texting all along. And that was only the beginning. She finally stopped coughing, her face flushed and her hands trembling as she reached for a napkin. The silence between us was the loudest thing in the room. Her wine glass lay on its side, the crimson pool slowly creeping toward the edge of the table like it was trying to escape the scene. She opened her mouth to speak, maybe to deny, maybe to lie, but I cut her off by sliding my phone across the table. The screen was already open to the screenshot I'd taken 2 nights ago. I wasn't supposed to see it, I said quietly. But I did. It was a photo. Not of her. Not of him. Just a blurry shot of a hotel room door. Room 314, and the timestamp that lined up perfectly with her team-building seminar in Albany. At first glance it meant nothing. But it was what came next that mattered. The messages. The ones I recovered from the cloud backup she forgot to turn off. Griffin Crescent Moon. Still thinking about last night. You wore that black thing just for me, didn't you? Maris. I told Eldon it was for his birthday dinner. He believed me. Upside down face. I didn't say anything else. Just let the silence burn. She stared at the screen like it was written in a language she'd never learned. Then, for a moment, her face collapsed. That fake smile veneer she'd been holding all evening fell apart like a cheap mask. Her hands dropped to her lap, and that's when she whispered it, like it would fix anything. It didn't mean anything. Of all the things she could have said, that was the one that snapped something loose in me. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I'd been carrying so much weight that when it finally cracked, laughter was the only sound left. Didn't mean anything? I repeated. So, what? It was just cardio? She stood up fast, the chair scraping across the floor like fingernails on glass. Her voice went sharp, almost panicked. You've been checking my phone? That's what this is. You spying on me? There it was. The deflection. The shifting of blame. A classic tactic. I'd read about it on forums. I never thought I'd live it in my own kitchen. I wasn't checking, I said. I was confirming. And that's when I pulled out the second phone. Not mine. Hers. The old one she thought was broken. The one she left in the drawer when she upgraded last month. I'd charged it. I'd guessed the passcode. First try. Our anniversary. She didn't say a word. Just looked at me like I'd opened a grave and found something still breathing inside. You forgot to reset it, I said, voice steady. So I did. There were photos. Not explicit. Nothing violating YouTube rules. But enough to tell the story. Him picking her up in his truck. Her sitting in his lap in a bar parking lot. Their hotel door selfies. The little moments. The ones that aren't about sex, but about intimacy. The kind that cuts deepest. She didn't deny it again. She just sat back down. Slowly. Quietly. Like the floor beneath her had cracked, and she wasn't sure how far it would fall. I picked up my fork. Took a bite of cold spaghetti. Chewed. Swallowed. And then I said, So, Griffin, is that his first name? Or does the moon emoji mean something special? Her face twisted. Not in guilt. Not even shame. but fear. Because she finally realized I hadn't told her the worst part yet. And I hadn't even started. She didn't touch her phone again. Not after that. It sat there on the table, screen down, as if that would somehow bury the evidence beneath it. Her shoulders were slumped now, her voice absent, and the weight of the room was crushing us both. I watched her breathe. Fast, shallow, the kind of breathing people do when they're cornered. I took another bite of pasta. Still cold. Still too much garlic. She hated when I overdid the garlic. Funny how I still remembered that. I never planned for this, she muttered finally, eyes locked on the wine stain spreading across the table like blood in water. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. You mean, you never planned on me finding out? Or you never planned on cheating at all? Her eyes snapped to mine, but there was nothing behind them. Not fury, not sadness, just a vacancy. And somehow, that hurt more than if she'd screamed. She hesitated. It wasn't like that. I laughed under my breath. No? Then help me out, Maris. Because I'm having a hard time figuring out what like that means. Is there a version of this story where you're the victim and Griffin's just your emotionally supportive moon emoji buddy? That stung. I could see it. Good. She looked down again. It was just supposed to be a distraction. And there it was. A word that sat like a stone in my stomach. A distraction. Like I was a long meeting. A waiting room. A long stretch of nothing she needed to escape from. I stood up slowly, walking over to the cabinet. Pulled out the second wine glass. The one we never used because it didn't match. Filled it. Took a long sip. And when I turned back around, she looked smaller. Like someone who had just realized they didn't know which version of themselves was real anymore. You know what the funniest part is? I said, pacing slowly now, glass in hand. I didn't want to believe it. Even when the signs were all there. I thought I was being paranoid. I thought, maybe I was just jealous. Or insecure. You made me feel like I was the problem. I know, she whispered. No. I snapped, louder than I meant to. The glass in my hand trembled. You don't know? Because while you were out there playing mystery romance with Griffin the Moon emoji, I was in here defending you to everyone. To my sister. To my therapist. To myself. And the whole time, you were already gone. Her lips parted like she wanted to respond. Maybe to apologize, maybe to deflect, but I didn't give her the space. I know about last weekend, I said calmly. I know he wasn't just in town for a conference. I know he was staying 15 minutes from here. I know you weren't at your mom's. She didn't ask how I knew. She didn't need to. I had the receipts. Literally. His Uber history, forwarded to my email from an anonymous tip. Apparently, Griffin left his account logged in on a shared tablet at work. One of his co-workers wasn't thrilled about the affair. She found me. Turns out, I'm not the only one Maris lied to. And now, for the first time since this dinner began, she looked scared. Because she realized I wasn't guessing anymore. I wasn't fishing. I was prepared. And I wasn't done. I didn't expect the message. Not really. When it hit my inbox that morning, I thought it was spam. Or a mistake. Until I opened the image. Just one, at first. Griffin, in a parking lot. Maris getting out of his truck, smiling up at him like he was her whole world. The timestamp read 9:42 p.m. Saturday. She told me she'd fallen asleep watching her mom's cat. But this wasn't a cat. This was a man in a flannel shirt with his hand on my wife's waist, and a look on her face I hadn't seen since our 3rd anniversary. Joy. Electricity. That spark she stopped showing me somewhere between month 70 and month 71 of our marriage. The email was short. No name. No threats. Just 3 words. You should know. At first I thought it was a scam. Or someone trying to start trouble. But then came more. Screenshots. Video. Uber logs. A voicemail Griffin left. Voice slightly slurred, cocky, bragging to someone about how her husband's just some guy who microwaves pasta and thinks that counts as romance. That broke something in me. Not because it hurt, which it did, but because that's how she must have described me. That's what she'd reduced me to. Some guy? Some joke. She said she wanted honesty. That I never opened up enough. So now I was going to give her the one thing I never had before. The whole truth. Even if it shattered what little remained. Back in the kitchen, she was still trying to process what I said. That Griffin's co-worker had reached out. That someone out there, a stranger, had more respect for our marriage than she did. You talked to someone? She finally asked, voice thin. I didn't have to. They talked to me. I took another sip of wine. I think the guilt was too much. Or maybe Griffin's just a bigger idiot than we both thought. Left his account logged in on the office iPad. A shared one, apparently. You'd be amazed what's in his Google Drive. She pressed her hand to her forehead, like she could somehow rub the panic away. You went through all of this just to, what? Humiliate me? No, I said. I wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't losing my mind. Her eyes met mine again, and I saw something behind them shift. Not remorse, not grief, but calculation. She was working through it now, mentally reaching for control again, trying to find an angle. That's what cheaters do. It's not just the betrayal. It's how they always think they're the smartest person in the room, until they're not. I can explain it, she said slowly. Please don't, I replied. Don't insult both of us with a story you know I won't believe. Just sit in it, Maris. Sit in the silence and look around. This is what it feels like when someone knows everything and still chooses not to scream. I walked over to the side table and picked up the manila envelope. I debated whether to bring it to dinner. Thought maybe I was being theatrical, but now it felt perfect. I dropped it beside her plate. She didn't touch it. What's this? She asked, staring like it might bite her. Printouts, I said. Screenshots. Transcripts. Even a copy of your hotel reservation in Albany. You booked it with our joint card. You never were good with details. The color drained from her face again. This time, she didn't cough. She didn't argue. She just stared at the envelope like it held a loaded weapon. I'm not going to hit you with it, I said dryly. I just thought you should see what I see. Everything. All of it. Without filters. Without your edits. And then I leaned in, voice calm but cold. Because the next person who sees this folder isn't me. Her mouth opened slightly. She blinked. You're bluffing. No, I said. I'm done bluffing. That's why I called someone this morning. Not a lawyer. Not yet. Just someone who knows you. Someone who deserves to know who you've become. Her hand gripped the edge of the table, knuckles pale. Who? She whispered. And I smiled, for the first time all night. That's the moment she knew. I hadn't just exposed her to myself. I'd exposed her to someone who actually mattered. Someone she never expected. She sat completely still, her hand hovering over the envelope as if opening it might trigger something explosive. Her breathing had gone shallow again, and her eyes darted around the room like she was searching for a way out, but there wasn't one. Not anymore. I don't understand, she said finally, her voice quiet, tight. Who did you give this to? I leaned back against the kitchen counter, arms folded, wine glass resting on the edge beside me. I didn't answer right away. I wanted her to feel it, not just hear it. Feel the weight of knowing the walls were closing in. She asked again, more urgently this time. Eldon, who did you send this to? I held up a finger and walked into the living room, returning a moment later with my phone. I tapped the screen and turned it so she could see the most recent outgoing message. It was a Dropbox link, sent 5 hours ago. The recipient, Charlotte Mendelson. Her jaw tensed. Her spine straightened. You didn't. I did, I said flatly. And just so we're clear, I didn't send it as revenge. I sent it as closure. Charlotte wasn't some random friend. She was her boss, head of marketing, a woman who had championed Maris for years, who defended her through budget cuts, promoted her faster than anyone else, and once called her the future of the company in front of their entire board. But what Maris never mentioned, what she probably didn't think I knew, was that Charlotte had one rule. One very clear, publicly stated policy. Zero tolerance for personal entanglements inside the workplace. She had fired a senior director 3 years ago for secretly dating a junior staffer. And guess what, Griffiness? Your performance review is next week, isn't it? I asked calmly. I figured she'd appreciate full context before giving you another raise. You don't understand what you've done, she said, standing up so quickly her chair nearly tipped over. Charlotte's been trying to get me on the executive track. She said she was grooming me for senior leadership. Well, I guess now she knows who's been grooming you. Her face twisted. You're ruining my life out of spite. I stepped forward. No, I'm shining a light on it. You ruined it. I just opened the blinds. She tried to say something else, but I cut her off. You're always so careful, so calculating. And you thought you had it all handled. Your secret nights, your burner email, your deleted messages. But the one thing you couldn't calculate for was someone else in Griffin's orbit getting a conscience. Her lips moved, but no words came out. It was like she had run out of script. The lies didn't fit anymore, and the truth was too dangerous to speak. I told Charlotte that you were free to deny everything. I continued. I told her I wasn't interested in revenge, just transparency. What she does with the information is her call. Maris stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Not as the forgettable husband who waited up late while she worked overtime. Not as the fool with dinner on the table and hope in his eyes. But as someone who had planned this carefully, thoughtfully, quietly. "You're not who I thought you were," she said bitterly. "That's rich," I replied, coming from someone I literally didn't recognize in those hotel photos. The silence between us grew thick again, not just with betrayal now, but consequence. For once, the weight wasn't just on me. I could feel her scrambling internally, her mental whiteboard full of options. Call Charlotte? Deny everything? Blame Griffin? Beg? Disappear? None of the plays felt strong enough, because none of them fixed what was already broken. "You think this makes you strong?" she asked suddenly, venom in her voice. Tattling like some rejected high school boyfriend? I stared at her for a long moment. "No," I said. "It makes me free. And for the first time in months." I meant it. She didn't cry. I thought maybe she would, that I'd finally see her drop the performance and show me something real. But no, Maris didn't break down. She broke inward. And that was worse. Her body stiffened, her voice went flat, and she shifted from panic to strategy. That's how I knew the guilt was never the problem. The problem was losing. "You've made a mess you can't control," she said slowly, carefully, like a lawyer preparing closing arguments. "You don't know how people in my world work, Eldon. Do you think Charlotte's going to fire me just because of some dramatic email from my emotionally unstable husband?" I raised an eyebrow. "You're already rewriting it that fast?" She didn't blink. "It's the narrative that matters. And you handed me one on a silver platter." I nearly laughed, not because it was funny, but because she still didn't get it. She thought this was about public opinion, about playing a game of who spins it best. She didn't realize she was already behind on the scoreboard. So I opened my phone again and tapped to play the voicemail Griffin left her 2 nights ago. The one her "Do Not Disturb" setting had let me intercept on our synced home device. He was drunk, really drunk, rambling, arrogant. "I told you to relax about your husband. He's not going to do anything. You said he folds when you cry, remember? That he still thinks he can win you back. Babe, he's not a threat. He's a routine. You've outgrown him." I paused it there. Just let the words hang in the air. Her eyes closed. Her face didn't twitch, but her hand gripped the table's edge like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. I took a slow breath. "You wanted a narrative, Maris? That's the real one. That's what Griffin thinks of me. And of you." Silence. And then, rage. She grabbed the edge of the table and pushed herself up, knocking the wine bottle to the floor. It shattered. I didn't flinch. I let her rage wash over the room like static electricity. Let her scream, "You had no right." Let her say I violated her privacy, that I betrayed her. Let her scramble for control like a drowning woman in calm water. And when she was done, when she finally stood there, panting, glass underfoot, her voice hoarse and her control cracked wide open, I walked past her and opened the drawer by the fridge. I pulled out the padded envelope. Not the one with the screenshots. A different one. Heavier. "What's that?" she asked, her voice smaller now. "Return mail," I said. Turns out Griffin's office is real old school. They still hand out company welcome kits. I got his. Accidentally sent to our house. I opened it, slow and deliberate. Inside was a USB, a branded mug, a welcome letter, and a handbook. Inside that handbook was a digital code of conduct. One that said, in bold, underlined text, "Romantic relationships between staff and contractors must be disclosed to HR within 48 hours of initiation, or the contractor will be suspended pending investigation." "Remind me again what you told him I do?" I asked, voice low. She didn't respond. She didn't have to. Griffin's company doesn't know you're his freelance creative consultant. They don't know he's been giving you side payments through his personal Venmo. But they're about to. That was the final blow. Not loud. Not violent. Just clean. Professional. Permanent. She sat back down. Not gracefully. Not like someone plotting her next move, but like someone whose foundation had finally cracked beneath her heels. "You're going to ruin 2 careers, she whispered. "Over what? A broken marriage?" "No," I said, meeting her eyes. "I'm ending a lie. You're the one who built your career on one." Then I turned my back to her and began picking up the shattered glass on the floor. Because now I was the one who looked calm. The thing about pulling a trigger is, Sometimes the bullet doesn't land where you expect. I didn't call Griffin, didn't threaten him, didn't send some long, righteous email like some spurned husband demanding an apology. I didn't need to. The truth has gravity, and all I did was let it roll downhill. The package I forwarded to HR at his company included everything. The timestamps, the payments, the voicemail, the photo of him kissing her outside the hotel while she wore the conference lanyard around her neck. No commentary, just data, just the kind of evidence that speaks louder than any scandal ever could. And then I waited. It didn't take long. Thursday morning, 2 days after the dinner, and one after Charlotte's auto reply let me know she'd escalated the matter to legal, Griffin called me. The number lit up while I was drinking coffee in the backyard. I let it go to voicemail. Then I played it on speaker, staring out at the empty lawn furniture we never used together. Look, man, I don't know what she told you, but this is going way too far. You don't have to destroy my life just because your marriage fell apart. I didn't even know you two were still together. I thought she was separating. I didn't ask for any of this. You're being vindictive. That word again. Vindictive. As if exposing the truth, his truth, made me the villain. I didn't respond. Just saved the message and went back inside. Maris was sitting on the couch in sweats, scrolling like it might change her reality. She didn't even ask where I'd been. I think she knew something shifted when I stopped asking her anything. By noon, Griffin's name started disappearing from company profiles. By dinner, someone on LinkedIn had already updated the job listing for his role. Seeking replacement for creative lead. Urgently hiring. The internet moves faster than guilt. Maris said nothing all day. Not during breakfast, not during lunch, and definitely not after dinner, which she didn't touch. She just stared at the window like she was waiting for her life to come back from the dead. And then, around 10 p.m., she broke the silence. You win, she said flatly. I didn't look up. Wasn't a game. She laughed once, bitter, sharp. Don't pretend this wasn't about hurting me. I leaned against the hallway wall and crossed my arms. No, I wanted the truth to hurt you. There's a difference. You ruined his job, she snapped. No, I said calmly. He did. I just let the right people see it. She stood then, suddenly full of fire again. So what now? You want me to beg? Move out. What? You get the house, the moral high ground, and some poetic ending where I walk out in the rain. I didn't answer her. Instead, I walked over to the coffee table and picked up the envelope she hadn't opened. The original one. The one with the printed proof. I handed it to her. I want you to read every word. Not because I need you to confess. Not because I need closure. But because I want you to see, for once, exactly how much I saw and how long I said nothing. She didn't take it at first. Just looked at it like it was radioactive. But then, slowly, she reached out and pulled it from my hand. As she sank back onto the couch, I turned and walked to the bedroom. For the first time in months, I closed the door and locked it from the inside. She could read. She could weep. She could rage. But she couldn't unwrite the truth. And she couldn't stop what was coming next. Because while they were both busy lying behind my back, I'd already started building the thing they never expected. A future without either of them. The next morning, the house was silent. No boiling pasta. No buzz of her phone lighting up the walls. Just sunlight spilling through the curtains and the smell of coffee I made only for myself. I didn't sleep much. Not because of her. Not even because of him. But because I realized something that night behind the locked door. I wasn't broken. Bent, maybe. Exhausted, definitely. But not broken. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't asking why. I wasn't replaying moments in my head or wondering what I could have done differently. I wasn't trying to fix a thing that wasn't mine to repair. I got dressed, packed a bag, just enough for a few days, and left her a note on the kitchen counter. Not dramatic, just honest. Don't call me. I need time. Not to process you. I've done that already. But to remember who I am without you in the room. She didn't try to stop me. Maybe she knew this time was different. That this wasn't some emotional outburst or empty threat. This was quiet. Clear. I had nothing to prove to her anymore. I drove for hours without checking my phone. No music. Just the road and the realization that peace isn't something loud. It's something small. Soft. Earned. By sunset, I found myself at a small inn 2 towns over. Nothing fancy. Just a clean bed and a window overlooking a lake. I stood out there, hands in my pockets, watching the light shift on the water. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt steady. Over the next week, things kept moving. Charlotte sent a polite message thanking me for the information and confirming they'd handled the internal matter. Griffin's name never came up again. His profile disappeared like it had never existed. Maris texted me once. Just one line. "I'm sorry. Not asking for anything. Just needed to say it." I didn't reply, not because I was angry, but because that story was finished. I'd lived inside her orbit for too long. Let her mood set my weather. Let her absence shape my worth. I wasn't doing that anymore. Instead, I started writing again. Just for myself. Pages of nothing. Really, memories, fragments, questions. But it felt like air returning to my lungs. Like walking into a space that finally belonged to me. I also called my sister back, the one I'd ignored when she warned me something felt off. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just said, "I'm proud of you," and told me there's a spare room at her place if I ever need it. And you know what? I might take her up on it. Because healing doesn't look like revenge. It looks like people who stay. Rooms that feel safe. Mornings where you don't feel like you have to shrink yourself to keep someone else comfortable. So yeah, she texted Griffin. During dinner. In front of me. But what I said next didn't just make her choke on pasta. It made me finally breathe.